This is drawing 47, and it's called the lymphatic system. So when we've been talking about all these white cells, T cells, B cells, things like that, a lot of times we've said that they end up in the lymph nodes. So this is a quick overview of where these lymph nodes are. They're part of the lymphatic system, and there would be another drawing just on lymph nodes and spleen, which are the where we can see the B cells and T cells hanging out. In this drawing, we aren't going to see the B cells and T cells. We're just going to take a general look at the system and where these nodes are. Okay, so we have a body shape ready for you. You don't have to draw the body out. That would take a little too much time. We'll probably do that in a later drawing, but right now you've got your little generic body outline. And we're going to put in basically the lymph system, lymph nodes, which if you've looked at an anatomy book, you think, wow, if you've seen this, it looks really complicated. We're going to try to simplify it. It looks a bit like the circulatory system or the nervous system, lots of tiny branches coming together to make larger tubes. It's a system of tubes. The lymphatic system is a system of tubes. And actually, maybe we should start with this thing down here. Let's zoom in down here, and let's start with this. Okay, in the corner. And this will explain how the whole system gets started. A big difference between the lymphatic system and the circulatory system is that the lymphatic system has it's closed. It's what they call open. I'm sorry, it's open. The circulatory system is closed. There's no beginning and no end. It's a continuous loop, which is not true with the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system has a definite beginning and a definite end. So it's what they say, an open system where things can go in and out. Okay, so we're going to draw the very tiniest vessel where it all gets started. You know, this is a lot like in geography. There are, if you trace a river back, you know, where does the lake or the river come from? Well, you'll find smaller streams leading into the river. And then if you start walking along that smaller stream, you'll find even smaller streams that drain into that. And then if you keep working your way up the mountain, at the very top you find little tiny rivulets, you know, or the rain washes into. So it's kind of like this, and it's like this is the smallest thing at the top of the mountain. This is where the fluid first enters. So we have we'll try just really lightly here, because we're going to this is just a super guideline. We're going to draw something like this, the end of a lymph vessel. We just call them lymph vessels. I mean, you could call them lymph capillaries too sometimes. So this is going to be as if we're drawing a little capillary, but this is a lymph capillary. Okay, and they are mixed right in with regular capillaries. You'd have them running right in and around among, you know, they're all intertangled with the blood capillaries. So we're going to do like a cross-section type thing. When we start at the end one. And of course, what are things made out of? Cells. This is made out of cells. The cells get together. There's the end cap one, and I can even put a cell body in there. Okay, so in reality, it's going to be like a pancake shape, right? So we're just cutting it in half, so we're going to see kind of a side cross-sectional view. Okay, so they're going to line up like this, just like the endothelial cells, right? This is going to look a lot like the endothelial cells, the capillaries. Okay, so, but what you need to do is make sure to leave some space here between. Now, these are not tightly joined like the capillaries are much more tightly joined together. These are intended to be leaky so that fluid can leak in. Okay, so when you go down here, you have some of them that form. This one will be kind of tricky. This cell is going to come in like this towards the middle, and it has a matching one that's going to go like this. Okay, and we'll just give some nuclei to these cells. Isn't that cool? We've actually made a valve here. Okay, so let's draw the rest of it down like this. This is a really cool design, isn't it? Okay, so the cell nuclei in there. Don't forget their cells. So what we've made is a one-way valve, right? So something can get through this way. It could push these open like this. I'll put my hand out here. You could push them open like this. But if it tries to get back this way, it's hard to do with one hand like that. Oop, there we go, okay. You can push it open this way easily, but if it tries to get back, the pressure pushing here is just going to squeeze them more tightly together. So the more you try to get back, the tighter they squeeze. But this way, it easily opens. Okay, so this is a one-way valve for fluid. Now we need to draw the body cells around here. Where is this thing? We'll just draw some kind of generic. We're not specifying exactly where this is in the body. Somewhere. Okay, this is just a very generic drawing. Okay, and so these are body cells. Okay, you can give them a nucleus if you want. These are cells. Okay, and in between these cells, there is fluid. Now you remember, what does histamine do? Histamine causes the blood capillaries to dilate and leak, and what leaks out isn't usually red blood cells. Some white cells leak out, right? Neutrophils can get out into these interstitial, this is called the interstitial space, right in here. Interstitial space, okay? And you might have, a white cell running around in here. You could also have bacteria running around in here or something. That wouldn't be so good. But when you get those capillaries to leak, what mostly leaks out is water and some proteins. This is the plasma part of blood, right? Water and proteins, that's plasma. So some of the plasma and blood leaks out, and some of it gets back in. A lot of it does actually get back into the capillaries, but some of it does not. Some of it stays in these interstitial spaces, especially if you've had like a swollen, because that'll make a place get swollen, right? So how do you unswell? Well, partly it is this drainage. About 10% of the fluid that gets into these interstitial spaces is going to drain back in like this. Now, I'm going to take my green just to be fancy. These cells are not green, okay? These are not plant cells. But just because this is a diagram and we want some color on the page, I'm going to make these green just for the fun of it. And that'll also show up my arrows better. Okay, so these are just basically endothelial cells. These aren't much different, right? They're a little bit different. They're expressing different genes and knowing how to do a few things, but basically they're endothelial cells. Okay, so we're going to make we can make maybe blue lines going like this, indicating that fluid is coming. About 10% of the fluid that leaks out of the capillaries leaks back in via the lymph system. All right, so you get interstitial fluid leaking in, mostly water. And once it gets into here, you can call it plasma, interstitial fluid. Once it gets in here, it's just called lymph. I'm going to call it lymph fluid, but you just call it lymph or just lymph. And it's funny because lymph, the name lymph, comes from the Roman goddess of water, whose name was Lymph. So it kind of just means water. Okay, so you might also have little particles. If there would be proteins in here. Little tiny proteins would leak in. and it's possible you could get a bacteria. Also, it's funny, but you also get macrophages. That's a kind of a tiny one. He'd be a little bit bigger. But you could get, or maybe it's a dendritic cell or something. You can also have white cells like that hitching a ride, because if you want to go to a lymph node, which they do, sometimes the macrophages, they're out here eating, yum yum yum, and they want to go and they say, oh, I caught a bunch of stuff. I caught a basket load of little particles. I got to go show them to some T cells. If they hitch a ride and they get in here, they get washed through, they know they're going to end up in a lymph node. Well, they don't know because they don't have a brain, but that's the way it works. Just the mechanisms are that it can get washed in here. So you could, it was water, little tiny bits of proteins, water, if you want to write what's in there. Right? And they're going to get washed down this way towards a lymph node. So this is the very tippy end. This is microscopic, right? You can't see these. In fact, I'll show you how many you have. There's a picture here in your finger. This is like a Gray's Anatomy picture. It's an old picture, but this represents the lymph vessels of the finger. And of course, if you you can't see these. Just look how tiny these are, and they would be even smaller here. It looks like you can actually see them if you stripped your skin away, but I think they'd be microscopic. But that just shows you, even in your finger, you have these little tiny lymph vessels coming everywhere. And so here's the small ones. You can see leading into bigger. See how it's like little tiny? We've just drawn one of the little tiniest ones. And then they're all feeding into this tube here. And these are all coming and joining into this tube. And then these tubes in the finger are going to go join to bigger tubes. Okay, so we've drawn like a little ending here somewhere. Okay, so that's how the lymph gets started. So now we're ready to back out a little bit and draw on our figure here. Okay. And I'm going to take my green from down here and start drawing some of these little tiny little ends. I'm going to start in the foot down here, okay? I'll try to zoom in. It's going to be kind of hard. I've got to zoom in, zoom out. So you're going to have these little tiny vessels, and don't worry about being exactly accurate, and this is just really approximate. Okay, you'd have these little tiny vessels coming from all over, headed for, we'll put like maybe a more major one like this, and branching off. That's the main point, is to know that you get all these little branches. Okay, and you go up here, and we probably would hit some nodes down here. We want to put a couple dots down here. We'll definitely hit some up here. We're going to hit lymph nodes. This is like, what would it be like? These are like the roads you're coming by. This would be like a rest stop, you know, a gas station or something, a little right across the road, a little bump there where you have to kind of go through, or like a toll booth or something, maybe better, where you have to go, all the lymph has to go through these nodes. They filter through these little nodes, and then it keeps going. So it's like stop, pay your toll, go through this little toll booth, slow down, then you can go again. So these little toll booth kiosks called lymph nodes, every once in a while it has to go through there. So all the lymph has to drain through a node at some point. It has to go through. So we're going to go back up here. Say, don't worry about being real specific. That's good enough, right? Okay. And then let's do the other leg real quickly. Down here. Just so it kind of looks something right. Down here. Little tiny ones in the toes. Maybe put one or two down in the ankles there. You'd have a couple there. Not quite so many in the leg. They tend to be around joints, like, you know, meeting areas like that. Ankles, knees, and then the abdomen, you got a bunch. Okay, just something like that. See that? Okay, doesn't have to look just like that. Just so you get the idea that it's branching and it has these little lymph stops, nodes. Okay, now as we come up here, we're going to see that there's a main duct coming down here like this. This is going to be the main pipeline. This is like the highway. Okay, coming down here. And then it's going to split off. One branch here and one branch here. Okay, and then it's going to branch all through like this, with some branches off. And you're going to find here, this is where you're going to have a lot of lymph nodes. So put a lot of dots in here. And we get the same thing on the other side. Lots of dots. And you can probably feel these. This area here is called the groin. Right around it here. So you've got lots of lymph nodes down in the groin. And then you have some, this is good, this is where you can feel, this is kind of on the front where the doctor might feel and see how your lymph nodes down here. Okay, but then it's going to go, it's going to dive back. This is going to be along the spinal column. So the ones back here, you're not going to be able to feel. Okay, so this is up front, and then we dive back in and we go along the spine. So you're definitely not going to be able to feel these. They're way too deep. Okay, etc., etc. There's a few along here. Okay, and remember, you got to have these little nodes along there, filter unit. Okay, so at this point, okay, we're going to let's see here. Yeah, I want to show you where this is going to drain. Okay, something interesting happens. These and this arm, the ones from this arm, are all going to connect up to here, but let's draw what they're going to connect to. The lymph is going to work its way up, and it's not connected to the heart. There's no way to pump it, right? So during the day, when you just move around, your natural movements, your muscles kind of squish the fluid around, and you've got those one-way valves, right? It'll move up a little bit. This fluid will squish through the little vessels a little bit, and maybe it'll move past another one-way valve, and then it's up, it can't go back, and then you move around a little more and squish, it goes past the next one-way valve. So gradually during the day, bit by bit, as you move around, because of those one-way valves, the lymph is going to move up because of those one-way valves, right? Because it's got to fight gravity. But so just from the natural motion of doing things all day, moving your muscles, the lymph goes up here, and it goes into this major duct, and right about here, let's see, let's sketch in what your heart is right about here. Okay, just sketch it in just really lightly so we know, because we're going to put something else over it. We know that's about where it is. And then right here you have, I'll zoom in, you have two veins. A vein kind of, this is going to be way oversimplified. Okay, going in. We'll have a whole nother drawing on the heart. We'll draw it correctly. But right now, all you need to know is, and we're going to draw it blue because it's a vein, if you want to color it blue. It's going in towards the heart. Okay, you have these two veins. Okay, two veins going into the heart. And right above here, this is where this one is going to come, and it's going to go behind here and then over like this. It's going to hook over the top and it's going to join up right here. Okay, does that look like it's going behind there? And actually this would be behind the heart too. Okay, so that's why we kind of, the heart is, but if I draw the heart on top of here, they won't be able to see this, right? So this is going to go behind there, and it's going to come around over and connect like that. So this is all going to go this and then dump. It's going to dump into this big vein here. It's kind of right under your collarbone. Sort of, this is called the subclavicle vein. This is the clavicle. So here's that's your collarbone. It's kind of right underneath your collarbone, the top of your rib cage. Okay, so that's where it's going to dump. And then also connecting onto here is the dump from the left arm. The left arm is going to join right here, and this one is going to go to the head. So this is like you're going to have these three things coming together right here. So for this arm, let's just draw down here, draw some of these. Now you have put a bunch of nodes, and your armpit is a huge area of lymph nodes. Okay, so it probably drains from down here, right? Some of this will come up into here, right? Reach down maybe. All right, so and then the arm. You'd have put some lymph nodes in at the elbows. And maybe there's a couple at the wrists. And then down into the fingers. Okay, let me zoom out. Okay. Little tiny, few here, few here. Okay, and then the head. Just draw, see, this will go up the left side of the neck. And of course you've got, as you know, you've got tons of lymph nodes in the neck, lots and lots of them. So all the stuff draining down from the head and the face has to filter through these lymph nodes. Okay, and then they join up here. So look at that. We have, but you notice this arm, we didn't include this part of the chest or this part of the head. But the legs, both legs, the left arm and left side of the head, all join up and drain right here. Okay, so you can imagine now, okay, how about this side? We've got on this side, the head drain would come down to here. Go ahead and drain this side of the head. And lots of lymph nodes in the neck. And they have all kinds of fancy names for the lymph nodes in the neck. And there's you can anyways spend a lot of time learning a lot of anatomy terms for things like that, but we're just doing an overview. Okay? Except for I will point out the we're gonna label the ones here. You should know that you do see this word. Let's go over here. So here's the arm drain going out like this, and then this will go drain down here. This part of the chest. So it's almost like there's a like a stop line right there. Okay, and so this part of the chest, and then put in all your lymph nodes in the armpit. And I do want to note that the armpit ones are called axillary nodes. A-X-I-L-L-A-R-Y. Axillary nodes. Kind of means the ones on the side. Okay. Put some in the elbows. Some on the wrists. Okay, so we got their axillary nodes. So the ones on the other side would also be the axillary nodes, but we don't have to label, just label one side. Okay, so there is sort of an overview of how the lymph travels. Okay, these drain, and they go into the right subclavicle vein. And your legs and your arm, this is a busy place. Go up the duct here and drain into the left subclavicle vein. Okay. Okay, now we're going to put in the organs of the lymphatic system. They call organs, and or some people call them glands, but I guess they're more properly organs. So we're going to put in, well, the lymph nodes would kind of count. We already have them in, but we're going to add, let's put in the one that we've done before. We've talked about this one a lot, the thymus. The thymus is where T cells go to mature, and the thymus is right about on top of your heart. Now, it would be something like this size. So we're going to have to kind of draw it in over top here. It's a little bit, maybe we can draw, we got everything like stacked here. Okay. So we'll just draw these like they're just black silhouettes. Okay, and now let's label this one. We'll just put the label up here. Thymus. And remember, the thymus is very large in babies and children, and one of the things that happens in adolescence that you don't think about, if you get to be a teenager and you grow up, is your thymus shrinks. And during childhood is when you get most of your T cell development, and I guess thymus isn't needed so much. It's done most of its job, so it shrinks. It mainly like turns to fat, get more fat cells. But anyways, it shrinks down. So that's where the thymus is. And as long as we're up here in the head region, we'll put in the tonsils. I think we mentioned that they'd be about here somewhere, right? Tonsils. And actually there's a couple different subcategories of tonsils, but we're going to be simple there and just put tonsils. And then up higher you have very related, very similar thing called your adenoids. Adenoids. And they're kind of like tonsils too. Any of these things, the tonsils, the spleen, the adenoids, these are just places where B cells and T cells and dendritic cells can congregate and help to filter out, deal with pathogens. They're like little police stations with a whole police force there, because all the fluid draining through them, little bits of pathogen come through. So they're like little guard stations. So can you live without your tonsils? Yeah, you have your adenoids, and you're going to have your spleen and your lymph nodes and stuff. But it's just to be most efficient and most resistant to disease, you need to have all your lymphatic organs. Okay, so let's go down to, let's put in the spleen. Right about here, it's like to the left of your stomach. Actually, let me show you. Let's see, right here. It's a picture where it shows you the spleen sits just to the side of the stomach like that, just under your rib cage. Okay, we're going to put more at it in a minute. Right now we're going to just put right about here. It's this. Okay. Don't worry if it's not perfect. Just make sure it's on the left side though. Okay. Okay, so this is the spleen. And then down here, we're going to put another one in. Right here, let's see. We're going to draw approximately something like this. You could draw kind of like this is like in the background, like a ghost image here, where you have, this will be your large intestine. We'll come around like this. Alright, and this will be the bottom of it. That's the exit. And this over here is where, it's going to hook to the small intestine, right? This is the small intestine in here. So this is where it hooks up to the small intestine. This is where it comes out. That's the rectum. This is where it goes into the small intestine. And your appendix kind of hangs So like right here. All right, and point to it, and this appendix. And the word appendix, you may have seen it like at the back of a book. There's an appendix. It just means kind of an added on thing. So that's where the appendix is. Okay, and then we're going to draw a couple of them over here in this space, right here. So first let's draw the spleen. So you can see we're just right at the edge of our paper here. We need to draw something here, and something here. So let's draw, the spleen is going to be a thing that looks like this. It's kind of around, looks like a jelly bean, sort of, doesn't it? And let me show you a picture, actually, of the real, or it might remind you, might say, oh, that's the liver. It's like, no, it's a spleen. Or like a coffee bean or something. It's got a little complicated little dent here, whatever. The important dent here we're going to show is where these blood vessels go in. Okay, so it's a pretty simple organ to draw. And yours does not have to look exactly like that picture. The main point is we're going to have this, we are going to try to draw this dent here going in. So this will be fun to shade. To make that dent look like it goes in, we're just going to do a little shading along here, and you can take your finger and kind of smear. And then along the back here, we're going to make it look like it's round down here. Okay, like that. Alright, and if you want to make it a color, you can see that it's very dark. It's because it contains a lot of blood cells. Okay. There we go. Alright, now I've kind of left this open because we're going to draw the blood vessels going in. Take a red and then kind of draw it branching in like this. Okay, and then right along with it, arteries and veins kind of work together. Pairs, taking the blood to and from. Now, we're drawing them red and blue, but blood is red, okay? Blood that's not oxygenated is not blue. It's just a little bit darker red, okay? So don't get it confused here. But it works, but the red and blue works really well. That's a standard convention. I mean, every book in every country, everybody uses red for arteries, blue for veins, so that's what we're going to do. Now I can go back in here and sort of fill in behind. May even fill some of that in. Okay. So and maybe ours is not quite. So they had some texture here. Remember, if you want to add a little bit of texture here, kind of lumpy. Obviously it wasn't perfectly smooth like a jelly bean. It looked a little more anatomical than a jelly bean. Okay, but hey, that's not too bad, right, for a spleen. Okay, and then back in here we can even make it, just make sure we get that. Alright. So this, and we'll point down here because this is also the spleen. Okay, and we'll meet the spleen again. The next drawing we'll see a little bit. We'll go inside and see what's happening inside. But for right now, that's good enough. We need to know what the outside looks like. And then let's just sketch in over here. Let's sketch the thymus. This will be really easy. Actually, let me show you. There's where the thymus sits. right? Well, they have, don't mix it up with the thyroid. Up here around your throat is your thyroid. The thymus is down here. They have it shown that's kind of above the heart. We kind of put it, well, it's kind of, ours is kind of at the top there a little bit. You'll see it in different pictures kind of differently. All right, so that's kind of what you're looking at. Not too bad, right? So it's just kind of a lumpy, and once again, you'll see it in different pictures. Sometimes it'll have one side a little bigger than the other. Sometimes it'll be more or less lumpy, whatever. Okay, so you can just, I'll make mine a little bit lumpy. And then I guess it really is kind of a yellowy. So I'll take my lighter yellow and I'll give us a little color. Okay, just real quick, that's good enough. Thymus. So we've given it to do. I think we've said pretty much everything that needs to be said about the thymus between our immune drawings and this one. I'm sure there's more to it, but that's as far as we're going to get in this curriculum. Okay, and then down here, I just want to do a close-up of the appendix and show you where it is. What you need to do is draw it real lightly. 1, 2, 3 circles. 1, 2, 3. I should have left a little more room here. Sorry about that. 3 circles like this. Should have made the spleen a little bit smaller. Okay, and then connect them around the edge like this. And then the appendix is going to actually be down here, like that. And then go up like this. And then this is where the intestine comes in. Like that. Okay, so use those 3 circles to kind of shape it. And then we're done with the circles. You can erase them if you want. So this is going to keep going upward, extending upward. This is the beginning of the colon, which is your large intestine. This is intestine coming in. So the food would come like in and around like this. And there's this little pouch. This thing, you think it would be like this, right? The pipe would come in and go around. But there's this kind of extra little bag thing here called the cecum. And then the appendix is off of that. And actually the right name for it is the veriform appendix. And veriform means worm-like. It looks like a little worm sticking off there. Okay, and the cecum, its job is ... It's filled with bacteria. This is one place where you find your microbiome. A lot of good bacteria in here. Put in good bacteria. You need to remember. Okay, so they think that the appendix, one of the things it does is it also is full of good bacteria. And it's a safe place to hide. If you have a nasty intestinal, you have E. coli or salmonella or some terrible bacteria that gets in here, you have an infection, you have diarrhea, you have something go wrong, and you have bacteria at lots of other places too. Okay, but this little reservoir over here, this is kind of a safe place to hide where this stuff is kind of washed through, and probably this is going to survive. Or if you're taking antibiotics or something that's, something that's destroying your microbiome, hopefully the appendix is going to be a safe hiding place. And when it's all over and your body's, okay, I need to regrow my microbiome, this can repopulate. These guys can come out again and start multiplying and repopulate your gut after you've been sick. That's the current theory of what the appendix does. They used to think the appendix did nothing. They used to think it was some leftover from evolution, useless. Turns out it does have a function. There would also be immune cells in here. It's part of your immune system, and it's especially involved with your microbiome with good bacteria. So it does have a function. Here's a little close-up showing, this is where we would be the 3 balls here. The cecum, there's where the intestine joins in, right? And here's the appendix. And you can see here how it's all connected with blood vessels. You know, we don't usually draw that. It's difficult. But every part of the body is connected with blood vessels. So that's a, it says here, see, veriform process. I mean, veri means worm. Verm means worm. So that's like your worm-like thing.